Despite the fall of Antiochia, the two rebel leaders had slipped from Rex's grasp. Maximus had fled without any troops, and Severianus had turned his back on a peace treaty to double down on attacking the stalling Nerva-Antonine imperial dynasty. Rex discovered that Alexandria was in league with Severianus and marched to begin the grueling process of pacifying the region. While the Magister's army patrolled the balmy Egyptian coast, his sister was finally well enough to leave her bed after a period of illness brought on by the rigours of childbirth. The Nerva-Antonine dynasty had a new member, albeit a bastard by both legal and ethnic standards. The Emperor's townhouse in Tarentum was alive with the chatter of guests and the shadowy work of slaves, as not only was Regni's recovery cause for celebration for some, but the safe return of Lucius Verus from Asia had been confirmed, with the man himself in attendance for the evening's discussions. He didn't feel all that cheerful himself. He had expended resources and energies by the cartload in pursuit of his brother's cause, and now all were talking of how Rex had somehow emerged from the maw of defeat with several resounding victories. In fact, his decorum was eventually broken, and he stormed to the central courtyard to complain about Rex to the Emperor once more. When he arrived though, he was drawn into a hug with Aurelius and forced to hold his tongue while all bobbed about Regni and the baby. "You have a new nephew, my lord," Regni said to him, eliciting no response. "Lucius, please fix your face," Aurelius said. Verus tried to hide his outrage at everyone's presumption of legitimacy for the child, but with his failure being all too clear, Aurelius took him aside for a private word. "So you'll marry her?" Verus asked. "When the auspices improve," Aurelius replied. "But I will respect my bond to you, first and foremost." "Meaning?" "Meaning, I would like to ask you to bear the mantle of imperial heir, at least until Britannicus comes of age." The shock of the choice of name was drowned in the wash of the initial offer. A smile grew on Verus's face, but was wiped away just as quickly. "You want the throne to pass through me to Rex when you force him on Jelana, don't you?" "I don't want that at all, and the choice will be entirely yours. I must admit, when I promised Rex a word in his favour, I rather figured you would have concluded matters with Pompeianus before then, and the issue would be closed." "Yes, well, Pompeianus is a bolt of flax with a face painted on, I've learned. Jelana will not be seeing him again." Regni had come over to see the scheming pair with a request. "Can we go to the villa for a while? We should move closer to Rome, with the war ending, and I think we could all benefit from the peace." She held up a squirming Britannicus as evidence. "A perfect idea. Just family, as you say," the Emperor said, his hand falling on Verus's shoulder. Hello there and welcome back to Rex Romanum, where we are pursuing our final two objectives in the campaign. We want to capture Alexandria and defeat Severianus again. To achieve this, I started by besieging the castle to the east of Alexandria. This was going quite poorly because I've made my army too big so the men have no morale and lots of them are deserting. I was also quite surprised at just how many men we lost setting up ladders to attack this place. However, once all that's done, we do still have more men than the enemy have defending. So in we charge. Looks like Idrith got himself killed right at the very start because I didn't give my orders to the retinue fast enough. But anyway, we're going to start off by using our now quite improved archery skills to snipe enemies off the wall. With this we can clear out the enemy archers and make our attack much more successful. This group is a tiny bit too far away to always guarantee a hit with the size of the targeting reticule, but it works eventually. And once everyone's safe, I climbed up to the wall myself. There wasn't much space to go up the ladders to go inside, but we can still actually be surprisingly productive up here. Not only can we steal loads of arrows stuck in the wall to replenish our ammo, but us being here just agitates the enemy, and many troops who were further back from the wall come up to investigate, and that exposes them. Not only are the archers down the hill trying to hit them, but I can just shoot them at point blank range. And this was quite effective. After we killed the first group, I just kind of jumped up and down on the wall for a while and attracted enough attention that some more men came over, and then we can easily clear those guys out as well. So we're contributing to the battle much more than you might think for just standing outside the wall. I realised though that our main attack, the infantry going up the ladders, has now stalled somewhat. There isn't much going on in there. We've got no more men going up the ladders, meaning I don't have an excuse anymore and should go in myself. Took a look and it seemed like everything was going fine. I figured my men were hacking out through that gate along the wall, but actually what that was a group of enemies killing a bunch of my cornered survivors, and right after that they turn around to come and kill me as well, and they are quite successful. I do get cut down. So that didn't go very well. However, we do have a load more troops coming in a second wave, so they can storm in and kill the few remaining enemies and capture the castle successfully. And in the end it wasn't that bad, even though it looked like we lost a whole wave of troops going in. We did have Galba's army here, so Rex only lost something like 30 men, and the enemy lost well over 200 troops defending the castle, so overall it was an absolutely fine attack. As for who gets the castle, I decided to give it to one of the random minor officers who were hanging around in Italia. The idea with this is that by giving them a decent bit of territory, they'll rebase and come and start to hang out on the front line with us, and potentially we can use officers who do that in the attack against Alexandria. Not that we'd really waited for that. I spent a couple of days resting up my troops and then went to investigate Alexandria again. Previously, when we went over there, it was defended by something like 700 men, and now it's defended by something like 800, so it's getting worse and worse. Severianus has a really high troop cap. There's not going to be much hope for attacking the walls, but I can again try to set up ambushes outside the town. I put an ambush on the route that the AI pathfinding would use if it was going to have Severianus go to retake the castle that we just took, which it very well may do. However, after waiting all night in ambush, nobody was walking by. Plus we have Galba standing here, which might ruin the ability to ambush since our allies don't go into ambush stance, or whatever that thing is. No idea how that works still, so we're going to abandon all that. But the good news is that for some reason, when we check out Alexandria again, Severianus isn't there. I guess that's not necessarily good news, because he could be attacking us. After spending a bit of time searching around the area looking for him and finding nothing, I decided that we might as well take this opportunity to try and go at the city. Since there's still a really hefty force defending though, we're going to try and use all of the options that I haven't really done so far in this campaign. There's all kinds of things you can do while besieging an enemy city to try and weaken it so that it's easier to attack. So we're going to go for the long game here. We're going to have a nice long siege and pull out all the stops to see if we can make Alexandria a little bit less of a task. Alexandria's ports received ships from the world over every day, and its walls were lined with standards shimmering in the heat as Rex and company surveyed the situation.
"Only half what we saw last week," Eadfrith noted, "and no sign of the army marching. They've taken to the seas, I would wager."
"That's bad news, boss," Pullo said. "We got shipments going up and down the sea all over. We're going to be out of pocket if he stays out there. And if he simply sails to Antiochia, then marches south, it will be more than low-quality wine at stake," Agasicles added. "Acquired taste. I told you, it's all the rage," Pullo argued, while Rex looked over the map the locals had drawn up for him. "3 main roads into the city," he eventually said, "and open ground in between. Agasicles, have you read of Alesia?" "Caesar's Alesia?" "Yes. I think we can bring Severianus back if we show the city we're serious." "That's absolute madness. But if it can be done, it's me who can do it. I'd best start a plan, eh?" Agasicles said, riding back towards the main camp. The less well-read of the crew quickly learned what all this was about. 20 miles of palisade with 3 fortified gates and hundreds of watchtowers. It was as crazy on paper as it was in practice, but with a whole army labouring for a week, it happened. The city was enclosed, and all supply caravans denied entry. The defenders had been so uncoordinated that those who witnessed the siege works in the west had not informed those guarding the wall in the east, and so on, so that no one knew the entire city was being walled in until it was too late, and even then it beggared belief. Once the facts of the matter had been processed, the Alexandrians rushed from the western gate to break down the circumvallation, but behind the palisade wall was a gantry to a thin deck, which allowed Rex's men to pelt anyone who approached with arrows and javelins. After scores were killed in this fashion, Rex personally opened his own wooden gate on the main road and charged out with a band of his best men, sending the Alexandrian army scurrying back inside its walls. The plan now was to wait for Severianus to receive word of the dire situation and return for a decisive engagement. Whether he did know of Alexandria's situation or not, it wouldn't matter, for a hero of the age had a plan to one-up Agasicles' Great Wall.
"The people of this city are as awed by the name Rex as any in the world," Bagadatta explained. "Even a man with meager talent could incite their surrender. That is why I will smuggle Eadfrith over the walls and fire him like a flaming arrow into the city, whereupon the gates will become like paper and the soldiers like grass, all useless in the face of a burning desire to honor the eagle masters of the current age."
While his plan was unclear in the details, Eadfrith was willing to try and stir things up in the city, and asked Bagadatta to get him inside. The hero took his figurative flaming arrow to the wall in the dead of night, and propped a long stick up against it.
"Are we meant to climb that?"
Eadfrith asked, but before Bagadatta could answer, there were voices atop the wall, and hands reaching over to investigate the stick.
"Climb? No. Ascend," Bagadatta said.
According to his own later retelling, he shot up the stick like he was pulled by ropes, and atop the wall performed various feats of unarmed combat to distract the sentries, while Eadfrith slithered up the stick himself and disappeared into the city. The army then surrendered the next morning, after Eadfrith spread word of an official amnesty. This aspect was shared in Eadfrith's retelling, although he also claimed that the sentries on the wall had surrendered as soon as they had the chance, and thrown down ropes to let them in. Whatever the case, the gates were thrown open, the army inside was disbanded, and both Rex and Galba rode side by side into the grateful city. The noose was closing on the rebel consul. So then, turns out that you can use those siege options to take cities without a fight. That's a nice interesting discovery to have right at the very end of the campaign. So yes, we didn't have to fight the 300 or so troops inside the city, and we can just pass the city over to Galba to control, and now the whole area is immediately pacified. Took a while, but it was easy. Still, we don't know where Severianus is, and there's been no news of him attacking us, so we need to move out and search for him. One thing I wanted to do on the way was take this place, Recifer, because it's kind of a thorn in our side currently. Once we have this place captured, the front line with Roman Asia will be very clear around Antiochia. So I went and laid siege to the place, and no antics this time, just did the minimum number of things you have to do to get a siege assault going, and here we are. I wanted to do something similar to the previous castle attack, where I just sniped enemies off the wall, but there weren't that many targets. Plus, there's a ladder that our allies don't appear to be using, so we don't have much of an excuse to not go in at the moment. Took a peek over, and it looks like the enemy are queuing up in some way to defend the other ladder, but this ladder hasn't got much attention. We can use this position to snipe away at the enemies there, although there's a bit of collision problem, so we can't quite snipe over the fence. There's an archer standing right there, so I quickly take him out, and now we can freely stand on top of the ladder without being shot, and snipe away. We do have issues in that the shields the enemies are carrying are kind of bigger functionally than they look. When you shoot the enemy in the side, sometimes it counts as hitting their shield. So we do that for a while, and then I jump in to join the fight that is raging on. Both sides look the same now, so hard to tell what's going on, but I eventually find some guys who are enemies and start hacking. Some of them come away to fight with me, but that's not going to go very well. And really, we just clear this up. Hacking away at distracted enemies from behind allows you to pick up dozens of kills, and soon all the Romans who weren't actually my Romans are finally killed, and the castle is captured. We only lost something like 20 guys to capture the castle, which is pretty good since there was 120 or so defenders, a good exchange. So we'll give this castle to some minor officer, and now we can continue on. We're just searching for Severianus now, so while I could go and attack more cities and castles, I wasn't really doing that. I was just moving up to them, seeing what was there, looking for Severianus specifically, or any evidence of him being there, like army tracks on the ground, and then carrying on. And I did this for a very long time, actually. I went all around Roman Asia's territory and didn't see any sign of him. I went back to Alexandria to pick up Galba, who now has 100 extra troops in his army, since he's a bigger deal for having Alexandria in his possession. And yes, just getting him to follow me so that we might be able to use him if we do eventually find Severianus. Searched a while longer and still no sign of him. So now I'm roughly in the middle of Roman Asia's territory near Ankara, and it was about this point I thought, well, let's just besiege this place and see what happens. We don't really have enough troops to take it, but we may be able to do something similar with Alexandria and sneakily take this city for free just to flush Severianus out. I started doing siege stuff, then after like a day decided no, I'm not going to bother doing this actually. But Severianus was actually just there, off to the west on the other side of the river when I came out of the siege screen, so there we have it. I tell Galba to keep following me, and off we go. We do have the usual problem in that Galba doesn't want to engage Severianus, so I had to wait until nightfall to kind of force them to be close to each other so that we could get the battle going without Galba just running away. And here we are, he's got 400 men, the perfect amount for a decent challenge. Let's have a showdown. It was already after dark when Rex's army crested a hill and saw the rebel force in battle formation. Hurriedly, the Magister directed his men to prepare for battle while he took his retinue out to meet an advancing squadron of riders from Severianus' ranks. Once they got close, the torchlight revealed the rebel consul himself to be at their head.
"Finally a chance to end this!"
the consul shouted, backed by his jeering companions.
"Quite right," Rex replied. "Consul, I have come here to arrest you in the name of the Emperor. I'll leave you unbound if you keep your mouth shut."
The consul roared, as did his men, and he jumped down from his horse. He attended to something beside his saddle in the darkness, then revealed the silver beam of a drawn sword.
"Let's have it then. Everyone else seems to think you're untouchable. I'll have to save this empire myself, won't I? Fight me!"
Severianus shouted out. Rex looked over at Galba, who simply shrugged, then to Baghdata behind him, who was moving up to Rex's flank with a bow and arrow in hand. "Too dark for the fancy stuff anyway," Rex remarked as he grabbed the weapon and vaulted onto the ground. The attendants on both sides closed in to surround the two leaders, and Galba trotted into the ring to referee the duel. This was an easy job, for as soon as he threw a torch to the ground to start the fight, an arrow moved from Rex's quiver into a drawn bow with a single motion. Severianus had advanced warning, but in his haste to reach Rex, he chose to try and dodge the shot with a forwards roll. His descent drove the arrow intended for his stomach into his skull, killing him outright, and completing his drop to the ground as if he had been dead as soon as he moved.
"Now, surrender!"
Galba called out to the rest of Severianus' men, but they turned and fled in panic. Galba signalled to one of his own retinue to blow a horn, and with that, the army raised their torches on high and boomed out a sky-rending war cry before stamping forwards.
"What now, Magister?"
Galba asked. Rex watched Baghdata and Eadfrith put Severianus back on his horse as a trophy. "Kill those that do not surrender. Let them flee if you want. This rebellion is over," he said. With that, he remounted, grabbed his army's command standard with one hand, and pointed it at the rebel army.
"One more field of traitors left,"
he called to his men.
"Let's put this empire, your empire, back on its feet. No more madness and barbary, not even from me. Go, take anything you want from them, even their lives, and satisfy yourselves that the gods see your disdain for disloyalty. A new and glorious era starts tonight. Follow the standard to victory!"
When the cheering was over, the ranks were closed, and the steadfast enemy was met in battle. In this fight, we're going to see the pretty much optimum execution of the anti-heavy infantry strategy, where we endeavour to have the enemy's main infantry block have its non-shield facing side or rear facing our archer line while they're distracted facing our infantry. And that is just what happens right here. We start unleashing arrows into the enemy flank, and because the enemy lack decent cavalry, our archers are fine to leave out on the flank on their own. I'm going to personally deal with the enemy's archers, and after a short while, the enemy infantry block was either destroyed or ran away. Lots of the men went back because the enemy had reinforcements and they go to link up with them on the other side of the field. We'll just wait for them to come back. In the meantime, they left their archers behind, so we'll advance forwards with our infantry and just take them out. I was trying to help out as well, but wasn't being very helpful, just wildly slashing around trying to get that last guy, and there we have it. So yes, we don't want to chase the enemy down, we'll just stand here and set up again to send our archers around to the left once the enemy's infantry arrive. More enemy archers came over to fight with my archers, but we can just quickly shoot back because we have so many more than them. It nearly went really wrong because I wasn't paying enough attention basically. The enemy infantry line walked up to my archers and were about to engage them, but just at the last second I ordered the archers to move back a bit and our own infantry came over to distract the enemy. And we got away with it, and the plan can continue with our archers now at relatively close range to attack the enemy. After slashing through a few enemy archers, the enemy's infantry block again starts running away without much of a fight. This is not, I think, because of low morale. It is another case where the enemy are trying to reinforce. They're going back to their side of the map. We kill a few of them as we go, and then once again just sit on our hill and wait for them to come back. They will come back eventually. In the meantime, I actually pulled our position backwards a little bit to be closer to our own reinforcements since we are starting to get low on men ourselves. My horse was very wounded, so we're going to do a bit of a switcheroo here. I ordered my retinue to get off their horses so I can steal, I think it might be a Agacicles' horse there, and off we go. Now we're much faster and can have more fun charging through the enemy ranks. The enemy are coming up on this hill on our right, and my infantry are already up there ready to receive them. Just need to micro the archers to make sure we're again on the enemy's flank. Meanwhile, I go out into the enemy's archer lines and have a bit of fun now that my horse isn't really slow. The armoured horse I've been riding for a while just isn't very fast in general, so to be on a regular horse again feels very different. We're just rampaging through the enemy. Not that it's going all that well, we take a load of damage and the horse is immediately wounded again. I go back up the hill to see how things are going, and it looks good. Our archers are pretty much shooting backwards into the enemy's flank. That looks really powerful. Our own men are probably having a hard time in the melee, but it won't last very long. About 20 seconds later, there we are. The last of the enemy are down. Just a few guys hanging around in the distance now to finish off. Went out to try and inflict the final blow myself just for glory and managed to get it. There we have it. This is only phase 1 of the battle though, because I guess there's some limit on the number of waves of reinforcements the enemy can get, so we'll have to fight them again right after this. Looking at the results, that was really a great engagement. We lost like 30 men to take down like 250 enemies. Pretty good stuff considering both sides are quite equally matched when it comes to quality here, and the enemy tends to get better reinforcements than you do. Anyway, so we do go on to a second wave of this battle, and it's really just the same as the first. We're doing another deployment ready to hit the enemy in the flank. The key to this, by the way, is making sure your archers don't fire until the last second, because they don't have enough arrows to do this for long. In this case though, looks like we don't need to work very hard to get rid of the enemy. They fight us for a few moments, and when we start shooting at them, they all start falling back right away. I'm going to ride through them and get a few kills. This isn't going to be the end of the fight. It looked like a mass rout, but they're just going back to regroup again, and they'll come at us with another attempt. But really, there's nothing they can do. They're still ignoring my archers, so when they fight my infantry block from the front, their casualties will be enormous. And they don't have anything like cataphracts that could just go and wipe our archers off the map and stop us from doing this. So, we're fine. I sit here just casually killing a few guys with my bow, and this brings an end to the fight really. We finished them all off. Another easy victory with only minor casualties, and the entire rebel force is now down. That was actually easier than I thought it was going to be, just because of the sheer power of the correctly executed archers on the flank strategy against heavy infantry. So we'll take on a whole load of captives here, and that's going to be the end of the war for us. We're going to tell Galba to officially end the campaign. My objective was to get peace with Romanasia to formally end the civil war, and while that didn't happen right away, it did happen very shortly after this. So that means this is the penultimate episode. Next time will be the finale. There's no more gameplay objectives that I want to do, we're just going to wrap things up, and I'll try to come up with some ending to this relatively open-ended story if I can. It may be delayed a bit because I'm also starting another series at the same time, and just time to work on things is at a bit of a premium at the moment. But we'll see, so I hope you'll join me for that. Rex and Galba jointly secured Egypt and flattened Severianus' army in battle. The consul himself was on his way to Rome in a casket. The Magister's job was done, which meant his mandate to command Roman troops was fading fast as well. His last job was to return to Rome and report his success, and see if it would earn him true freedom. That is all for this episode. Thank you very much for watching, and special thanks to all of the OfficiallyDevin patrons. So join me to see how everything ends up for poor Rex next time on Rex Romanum.